Hello creatures, and welcome back to another episode of the Slasher Dreams podcast. I'm your host Ashley, and tonight's episode is sure to be a killer time. With that out of the way, I won't keep you waiting. As usual, we're going to dive right into our first segment, which is Creature Questions, where I draw 3 random questions asked by you, the listeners, and I answer them. Don't worry, if your question isn't answered in this episode, there's still a chance it can be answered in a future episode. After each episode, we take the questions out of the jar, we shuffle them up, and we put them back in, so that the questions asked a long time ago don't just stay at the bottom, never to be answered as more and more questions pile up. With that said, let's get into question number 1. What is a horror comic that deserves more attention? Now, we've talked about horror comics here on the show before. In episode 1, I gave some recommendations, one of which was Something is Killing the Children, which is another comic that I would like to highlight again right now. Something is Killing the Children is a brilliant fucking comic, an absolutely incredible comic with such a really fun and unique premise. Well, I don't know if unique's the word, but it feels kind of unique because of the way it's presented and the way that it's done. Something is Killing the Children is about Erica Slaughter, who is a member of the Order of St. George, specifically the House of Slaughter branch. As a child, both of her parents are killed by a monster that she manifested out of her own fears. She is taken to the Order of St. George by a hunter that saves her, and then she is trained and becomes a member of the House of Slaughter, specifically a black band, which is people who wear black bandanas within the organization. They typically hunt alone, and they are typically seen as outcasts, and they are more often than not the better hunters. Now, Erica is an incredible character, an absolute badass, has one of the coolest designs, probably one of my favorite characters in all of comics right now, as it stands. I absolutely adore her and this series. It is my favorite ongoing comic. The art is absolutely incredible. It's absolutely fucking phenomenal. They even have a show coming up. I can't remember if it's live action or animated. But I believe Netflix is going to produce it. And I hope that it is as absolutely stunning as the comics are. I really hope the show is animated, as I don't feel they'd be able to do it justice in live action based off of, how the designs of the creatures look. I fear that it would look a little bit off in terms of live action, because I'm pretty sure they would use CGI for it. But I really hope that they go the animation route, and I hope that they just put everything they can into it, because this is a series that deserves it. Another comic that I've been really enjoying that actually has its final issue, I think 7 days from the day that this episode is being recorded, is I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer, which is an incredible mini-series. It's only I think we're about to get our 5th and final issue. Yeah, 5th and final issue on the 13th. And it's about a girl who has, a serial killer, the whole thing going on. And she goes to a fashion school. And while there, she's trying to figure out a way to take her mind off of how she feels, the way that she gets those urges to kill, and she starts making friends with this incredibly kind, incredibly sweet girl. But pretty much everybody else around her is kind of making her want to act on her serial killer urges, and she has to try and find a way to suppress them as to not hurt this new friend that she's made, which is basically the first friend she's ever actually had. Problem is, she has this weird fixation with scratching at her skin, and the only way to soothe it is to kill somebody, bleed them into a bathtub, and then take what she calls a bloodbath. It's a whole thing. It's a really fun story. It's silly. It's fun. It's made by the people who made a Plastic Death and Dolls, if anybody's read that comic. So same people. And the main character is actually a really interesting killer. The way that she goes about things is different from most. It kind of feels like some sort of mix between Dexter and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this, because she does kind of feel like Dexter sometimes, and other times it's okay, because she tries to kill bad people 9 times out of 10. She doesn't try to she doesn't often just go out of her way to kill normal individuals, but she does sometimes, and sometimes she lets her personal definition of what's bad determine whether or not somebody becomes a target, kind of in the same way Dexter does. But yeah, that's another fun comic. It's having its final issue on August 13th. Check that out if you haven't. It's really good. Another IP-based comic, if you're looking for one that's more in chain to, like, actual, like, horror movies that exist already, is Valentine Bluff Massacre, which is based off of the My Bloody Valentine franchise. It takes that franchise and, takes it a different route, to kind of explaining what happened, like, years after the events of the 1981 film. It's a decent length comic. It is currently over, if I remember correctly, although their last issue did have a question mark at the end of it, so there is a chance it could be coming back given how the comic ended. Not going to spoil that. But it's got great art, like absolutely incredible art. And they even have a crossover at some point with Silent Night, Deadly Night, the Christmas slasher, which is pretty fun, and I recommend reading that too. It's also incredibly fun. And then another one I think deserves attention is kind of like, it's called Wolf and Batsy, and it's a fun duo comic about a vampire and a werewolf. It's got a real Saturday morning cartoon kind of art style, but a rated R writing style. They're violent, they're hyper violent, there's a lot of blood, a lot of, forewarning, there's kind of a lot of hidden nudity, like you see silhouettes, there's some blatant nudity, but, it's a horror comic. It's kind of drawn in like a Saturday morning cartoon art style, but the characters are incredibly unique. Wolf and Batsy are incredibly fun. Their misadventures are so fun to follow. The art style is absolutely phenomenal. It's a series that's been having a bunch of like mini runs here and there since like the early 2000s. I think they're two incredibly unique and underrated characters for, the genre that they're in and what they are specifically. So yeah, I'd recommend those. Those are a few that I believe deserve much more attention than they get. And I really hope that some of you guys will check those out because they're incredibly good comics. But yeah, let's move on to question number 2. Alrighty. What are collabs that haven't made it into Dead by Daylight that you would really like to see? Okay. There are a metric fuck ton of ideas that I have had, and I actually have a list of them in my notes that have not happened that I want to happen. Certain licenses and chapters I want to see. The killers, some I have legendary skins for so that we can get cosmetics. Some have multiple survivors. Some just have, one or two. Some just have one survivor. And I have some I have, killer power ideas for. We can go through my list real quick. I'm sure it won't take too long. I mean, there's quite a few, but I'm sure it won't take that long. Let me just pull it up here. Yeah, it's towards the top because I actually just edited it the other day. So for license ideas, I've got a The Thing paragraph. I don't think you could properly do, like, The Thing itself because, I don't think, so long as people can communicate with mics in some form while playing the game, I don't think a shape-shifting killer is going to be viable, which is why I think adding a shapeshifter is just something that they won't do. Maybe it can shapeshift into different things that aren't, the players, but I don't think unless they add like a specific game mode where a person can play as the Thing and pretend to be a survivor in like an Among Us or a Deceit or werewolf style game, or like a Town of Salem thing. I just don't see it happening. So for the Thing paragraph, I just have it so we can add the survivor R.J. McCready, who is an incredible protagonist from The Thing 1982. John Carpenter's The Thing is just absolutely flawless, and McCready is such a badass character. I think he would be an awesome addition to Dead by Daylight in general. And I think that the menu screen would be awesome. I think you could even add the Arctic station that they work at as like a map. I think that could be really unique and really fun. Plus, I would definitely love more snow-themed maps in Dead by Daylight. Ormond is just not enough for me. It's just not enough. I need more snow. If you know me, I love winter aesthetic-based horror. It's probably one of my favorite types of horror is when like they're in the snow, because when you get into the snowy areas, things like blood or intimidating like shadowy figures, shit like that, all of it contrasts so perfectly to the white of the snow that it really just adds this element on like every level, from like in your face like color contrast to like subtextual, because white is usually seen as a color of innocence, and for red to be spilled onto that when it comes to like blood is such a telling moment of the transition from innocence to traumatized for the survivors of the film. But that's getting into like subtextual art house shit that I don't think I should get into right now. Next up is I have an idea for an ice... I know many people probably don't listen to this band. They're not like a small band by any means. They do have a rather large fan base, but I never really run into anybody that actually listens to them. But an Ice Nine Kills chapter would be really cool. I'm sure Spencer would love to be in the game. I think you could add his silence persona from the Silver Scream web series that he kind of has, and I think having him as the killer would be cool. And he's friends with James and Chelsea from Dead Meat. They even play characters in his web series, so I think it could be a way to get like 3 cool celebrities into the game, with Spencer being the silence, aka the killer of the chapter, and James and Chelsea from Dead Meat being survivors. You could try to make it some super meta chapter where James and Chelsea are just making like jokes with their voice lines and shit. I'm sure that would be fucking awesome. Plus, I've seen everybody say that they want James A. Janice and Chelsea in the game. I mean, you could even give James a legendary skin for Zoran. I think that could be funny. Just, yeah. Another one that I'm sure is never gonna happen, but I would love purely from like a nostalgia-based standpoint, is a Scary Godmother paragraph where Scary Godmother herself is added into the game as a survivor. And I know people are like, survivor? She's a witch. Wouldn't that be more like aligned with the killing side of the game? No, Scary Godmother is there to help people have a spooky fun time, and if she got sucked into the entity's realm and saw people scared in a way that wasn't fun, she would not enjoy that. She does not like that. She is not cruel. I think it would be cool if her magic was just barely working in the entity's realm and she came with 2 or 3 boon-based perks that had decent effects to them. I any excuse to have more Scary Godmother in the world, I will gladly take. I know it's never gonna happen. It's probably never even been thought of by anybody but me. Not saying that I'm the only person that thinks about it, but I've never seen it mentioned. I've never seen her listed on their fucking forums asking what chapters people want. I've never seen it on their quizzes. I've never seen anybody ask about it. I feel like I'm the only person that's brought it up, so I'm gonna say I'm the only person that's brought it up. I've also had an entire concept for a Rob Zombie paragraph. I posted that on Twitter a while back. I think he could be a cool survivor. He's got different looks from his album covers to different looks that he's worn throughout, his entire career that could be used as costumes. Like a fucking horror director that absolutely just goes whole in on the genre. His music style fits the horror aesthetic. Everything about him is like one big love letter to horror. I think having him in the game would be fun. I personally view him as like a legend in horror because, I like majority of his movies. I like a lot of his music. He has a huge love and fascination and appreciation for horror. I mean, one of his most popular songs, his music video, is literally a homage to The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which came out in like the 1920s. Incredible movie. Absolutely incredible movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch that. But moving on, we could get a Dexter paragraph. I think Dexter would be a better survivor than a killer for the game, and it's not because, he is like so like anti-killing. I mean, obviously he's a serial killer, but I don't believe he would view any of the survivors as people who fit the code. I think he would view the killers, and I think having perks that allow him to fight back against the killers, you know, having experience going toe-to-toe with other serial killers, I think having him have perks that are more combative towards killers would be an incredibly fun way of going about it, and I think Dexter fits the survivor archetype of the game a lot more. An Outlast chapter would be awesome, with like the Wall Rider as the killer and maybe Miles Upshur as the survivor, with the I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the whistleblower could be like a legendary skin, and Blake Langerman from Outlast 2 could be a legendary skin. For the Wall Rider, if you wanted to have a legendary skin for that, you could have what's his fucking name? The Skinner Man from Outlast Trials. I think that would be incredibly fucking cool, because he's kind of like a phantom hallucination that the reagents have in Outlast Trials. That could be really cool. If you want a different killer for Outlast and you don't want the Wall Rider, because technically it is just a swarm of nanobots, and we do see it do shit throughout the game, both in Outlast 1 and Whistleblower. But it's not necessarily clear on what kind of power it has. I know that it lifts people, but it's just a little bit unexplained for the most part. You could do Chris Walker. He's also incredibly iconic. He's that big motherfucker that follows you around the asylum the entire game and calls you little pig like an asshole. Yeah, you could do a Traeger killer if you really wanted to. I know he's kind of popular in the Outlast community because of how creepy he is. I'm trying to remember the name of the girl from Outlast 2 with the giant fucking scythe-looking cross thing. I think her name was Marta or something. I think it was Marta or Mary, but I'm pretty sure it was Marta. She could be another cool one. I mean, there's a lot of killers in that franchise. I mean, if you want to go to Outlast Trials, you could do, you know, Coil, you could do Mother Gooseberry. Those are two really iconic characters from Outlast Trials. There's a lot of routes you could take that. If they could do a Left 4 Dead paragraph, like a sequel paragraph, I would love for them to add Zoe, or even, add Zoe and then add like Francis and Lewis as legendary skins, or if they want to like really, really collab with Valve, they could add Zoe and then they could split up the legendary skins and add all the guys to Bill's legendary skin area and all of the girls, which is just Rochelle at that point, to Zoe's legendary skin area. And I think that would be really cool, because I want to play. I know that we got skins for the other characters, for characters in the realm, but I really want Zoe in this game. I think with them adding more voice lines for characters now, we could get really wholesome interactions about how much Zoe's missed Bill in the time that he's been quote unquote dead for her. I think there's a lot you can do there with a chapter like that, or a paragraph like that. I think Left 4 Dead has more value to this world, to the world of DBD, than they've really tapped into. Another paragraph idea I had was for, Trick or Treat. Obviously, Sam, the spirit of Halloween, you gotta have him. He's literally a little icon, and they've already shown they're willing to do smaller character models by adding Chucky. I believe Sam is actively taller than Chucky, so it's not even that big of, I mean, they've been doing smaller character models forever, technically, because Victor's been in the game for years now as half the twins. So I think Sam's, more possible than he is not. One that I had an actual, power concept for was the Strangers. I think the Strangers could be really cool. Obviously, all three of them would need to be in the game. Survivors, I would choose Kinsey and Luke from Prey at Night, because they actually survived. But for the power, I had it so that you could stay... basically, all three of the Strangers were on the map, and you could see the two Strangers that you weren't controlling's auras throughout the map. And you could only be one Stranger at a time, but when it comes to the two that are stationary, they can see in a straight line, and anybody that walks within their line of sight that they can actively see that isn't, behind cover or something, their aura is revealed, which would cause the killer to have to strategically place the two uncontrolled Strangers in proper spots to be able to get proper utilization out of the aura reading. However, the moment they leave it, it's gone. And each killer would have their own individual power that they actively use whilst they are in chase. So if, like, you're the man in the mask, maybe he has, like, a quick axe charge where he rushes forward for a brief period of time, similar to Oni, but not nearly on the length of that sprint or the speed of that sprint. I don't think he should be as fast as, Legion and Oni. I think, like, a brief rush forward that's, like, maybe a few feet to kind of close chase could be good. It kind of forces more strategic counterplay and looping with pallets and vaults, different things like that. Maybe Dollface can have a more stealth-based approach, and I don't know what you'd do for Pinup Girl's individual power, but I think that's a chapter that could do really well. An Until Dawn paragraph was another one. I don't think they could add a Wendigo. I think there's a lot of sensitivity around that topic, and I just don't see it happening. But when it comes to the paragraph, I would add Michael Monroe, aka Mike, and Samantha Giddings, aka Sam. I think those are two survivors that are heavily requested for the game, and anything to get more characters in this game. And I know a lot of people are like, these are all really good ideas, but what about original chapters? I think original chapters should be just as focused on as licensed chapters. I think an alternating cycle of license, original, license, original would be a proper way to do this. I think it would be a proper way to prioritize the draw in of new people who want to experience licensed content, and to maintain the people who are here for Dead by Daylight's complex lore. I think that it focuses on appealing to everybody without alienating a certain part of the audience. Another chapter, not a chapter, but a paragraph that I would really, really fucking like, and it's a personal favorite film of mine, is Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead is an incredible movie that came out in 1988, about a man who summons a demon of vengeance known as Pumpkinhead after his son is killed by a group of dumbass teens carelessly riding their dirt bikes around, and they hit the kid. The kid dies, the father goes into grief and wants revenge, and he ends up meeting this... I don't remember if she's like a witch or something, but she tells him how to summon the Pumpkinhead, and he summons him. It's a really good fucking movie. Pretty much everything I just told you happens in like the first 10 minutes. So that the first 10 minutes is already a trip. I'm sure you'll enjoy the film. Please watch that. An incredibly underrated film. Enjoy. But yeah, we could have a Terrifier chapter. I'm sure that's one of the most talked about things I've seen in recent since we finally got Springtrap, is everybody was like, well, where do they go next? I've seen tons of people ask for Terrifier. I mean, Art the Clown as a killer is a character that definitely fits in Dead by Daylight, and his cruelty is over the fucking top in terms of like what he could bring to the table. Think about what his fucking Maury could be, for God's sake. He could have a legendary skin for Victoria Hayes. Her weapon would probably be like a shard of glass. If you get that reference, you get it. It's fucked up. Survivors, you could have Sienna Shaw with a legendary for Tara Hayes, because I definitely think Tara was killed way too early. I think she could have been a great final girl. But yeah, I'd love to see Sienna get, like her white and black striped sweater look, her angel costume look, maybe her Christmas sweater look from Terrifier 3. There's a lot of different skin options you could get from the outfits she wears in both of the movies she's in. Art could get like his Santa Claus outfit, his blood-covered outfit, which I mean, is you could. I don't know how you're gonna make it even bloodier for the Prestige thing, but I don't know. Maybe you could get like his headless his headless outfit, where he like at the start of the third movie when he's trying and his body's walking around trying to find his head. You could probably just there's probably a lot of things you can do with that, and I'm sure Damien Leone would give them the blessing to do like a blighted skin where it's even creepier somehow, because Art always finds a way to get creepier even when you think he's not gonna. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd love a Killer Frequency chapter. For those of you that don't know what Killer Frequency is, it's an incredible horror video game. Probably my second favorite horror video game of all time. Killer Frequency focuses on you playing a character named Forrest Nash, who got fired from a radio station he used to work at and is now working a really, really small town radio station. A small town that he seems to be unable to stand. Like, he can't stand this fucking place. You go to start your episode for the night, your whole show, and a deputy of the police force calls you and tells you that they need you to take calls and help people throughout the night because they're the only remaining police officer left after the sheriff is murdered, one of the cops is on vacation, and the other is attacked. She has to go out of town, like 3-4 hours away to the nearest other town to get backup to stop a serial killer that is returned after like 30 years. And you have to spend the entire night manning the phones of the radio station with your co-host and producer Peggy. And throughout the game, the Whistling Man, the serial killer that has returned, he's trying to kill multiple people, and you have to try and guide them by solving puzzles with clues left around the station as to their situations. And it's a fun game. It's so amazing. You can, based on how you play, you can either save everybody, or everybody can get killed, or certain people can die and others can live. It really just depends on how fast you solve things, if you solve them correctly, and how everything goes. It's a super fun game. It's got an incredible style. The music is fantastic. The art style is perfect. And its killer, the Whistling Man, is absolutely badass. He's so cool. Such an underrated serial killer in horror. A personal favorite slasher of mine because I absolutely adore everything about that game. I think you could have Forrest and Peggy as survivors for the chapter and the Whistling Man as the killer. Not going to get into his legendary skins because that would get into spoiler territory, but he would have some legendary skins. I don't want to spoil the game before you get to play it. I've explained the premise, and that's about it. Please play Killer Frequency. It is fucking incredible. We got two more. Obviously, of course I'm going to say it, My Bloody Valentine. The Miner would be an absolutely fucking awesome killer. You could have his masked Harry Warden costume. I think Harry Warden should be the main Miner because he was the first Miner. And then you can have legendaries for an unmasked Harry Warden. You could have an Axel Palmer variant, an unmasked Axel Palmer variant, a Tom Hanniger variant, an unmasked Tom Hanniger variant, and a red suit Tom Hanniger variant from the end of 2009 where he's made it out of the mine. You know, where he's like walking away, he's covered in blood. At first he's Tom, and then he switches over to, you know, the alternate personality of Harry Warden that he's developed. And then you could do Sarah Mercer, which in the 2009 version, she's Sarah Palmer. No, yeah, Palmer. She's Sarah Palmer in that film, but her actual name is Sarah Mercer. The wiki page has her listed as Sarah Palmer. But that is not actually her name in the original 1981 film. And you can have T.J. Hanniger as the other survivor for that chapter. But lastly, I think the last chapter, and the chapter everybody kind of wants, everybody's talked about, everybody expects it to happen one day, is the Friday the 13th chapter. The Ghost of Crystal Lake, you know, Jason Voorhees. Everybody wants him in the game. Pretty obvious collab to request. Personally, I would want Tina Shepard to be the survivor of the chapter, but I know that's never gonna fucking happen. If it's gonna be anybody, it's gonna be Tommy Jarvis, first and foremost. Most iconic character from the series that isn't Jason. Had, you know, the trilogy about his life where he's a kid in one, he's a troubled, like, late teens, early adult in part 5, and then he's a full-on adult going ape shit and brings Jason back and Jason lives. He's just too iconic. and even if it wasn't him, I'm sure they would go with either Alice from the first film, because, you know, it's like the thing that started it all, or they'd go with Ginny from part 2, because she's also incredibly popular amongst the Friday the 13th fandom. I sadly don't see my girl Tina Shepard being the telekinetic badass that she is in Dead by Daylight. I just don't see it happening. It's unfortunate. I would love for it to happen. It's just flat out not a possibility. But yeah, that does that for question number 2. Thank you for that. On to question number 3. Question number 3 says, which killer has the most aura? I'm gonna start this off by saying I don't really like the term aura when explaining a character. It feels like a really lazy way to explain that a character works for you, or that something about a character is most appealing. It feels like people take a character and they don't look at the writing, they don't look at any other aspect of them, they just look at how cool they look in a certain scene, or doing a certain pose, or when they had a certain look. I know the term, like, I know I use the term vibe, like, I vibe with this or I vibe with that. I know I use that a lot, but I at least contextualize and go in to explain my thoughts behind things on a deeper level, past, you know, just like saying, oh, yeah, this has a nice vibe, I really vibe with this. But to that topic, when it comes to killers with the most aura, obviously, it's probably a character like Jason or Michael, as they kind of have an aura about them. They radiate an intimidating, terrifying, imposing, monstrous energy, and they just kind of have this sense about them. I mean, you got killers that have fans hyping them up, and that's kind of a manufactured aura, I guess you could say. And characters like that, I would say, are like Ghostface and Springtrap. If you're looking for like underrated killers that I think have quote-unquote aura, recently I just watched Madman for the first time, and Madman Mars was a pretty cool character. Tommy Slater from Fear Street 1978, of course the Miner from My Bloody Valentine, Blade from Puppet Master, and just so many more. I mean, there's so many slashers out there that are so cool and have such incredible, like, fuck, I don't want to say vibes, because vibes and aura just kind of feel like the same thing. They have this feeling that's associated with them. And I'm sure somebody's going to be like, yeah, dumbass, that's called aura. I don't like the term. I feel like it's been turned into something that doesn't actually mean that. And I don't know. I would say I don't think there's any one slasher that has, like, the most aura. I think a slasher either has the feeling and they work, or they don't. And the ones who do are amongst the elite few, at least in my eyes. While the ones that don't have it are kind of ones that fall to the bottom or get forgotten. I hope that that's an appeasing answer, and if it's not, I'm really sorry. I don't like the term aura. I don't like how it's used nowadays. I don't necessarily even understand what the fuck people are talking about 9 times out of 10, because a character will just be doing something, and somebody will be like, oh, he's totally aura farming, look at him. And then a character will just be standing there looking sadly off to the side of the camera, and they'll be like, oh, dude's just aura farming, look at him, bruh. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He just looks sad. Like there's people who make it with, like, make jokes about it with Henry Cavill's Superman, you know, from Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman. They're like, people died and he's sitting there aura farming, and I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. He's just sad. He's not aura farming. He's not trying to be, like, cool or anything. He's just sad. What the fuck are we doing here? What are you talking about? But yeah. I hope I answered your question in a way that's satisfactory. I really don't know how to answer it differently than what I said. But yeah. With that, that brings an end to Creature Questions and on to our next segment. Alrighty, our next segment is Song of the Day. Song of the Day is pretty self-explanatory. We pick a song, we highlight it, and then we add it to a playlist called the Slasher List, the Slasher Dreams Podcast playlist, or Song of the Day playlist. I haven't picked an official name for it. I'll start posting the link on all Spotify episodes and YouTube episodes when we reach more than 4 songs. I say when we reach maybe 10, I'll start posting the links. In the meantime, if you really just want to hear the same 3 songs from the playlist on loop, you could just look up like the Slasher Dream playlist or something. I'm sure it'll come up. But yeah, I'll start posting the link when we get over 10 songs in the playlist, and it will just continue to get songs added to it over time. Today's Song of the Day is Thrive in the Nighttime by Haunted House. It is an incredible song. I even used it for a serial killer / slasher edit where I highlighted the Whistling Man from Killer Frequency, Billy Loomis from Scream, Harry Warden and Axel Palmer from My Bloody Valentine, and Michael Myers. An incredible song. The opening is like this horrifically terrified, it sounds like somebody's in pain, scream before it just kicks into this absolute banger of a track. The vocals are amazing. The song itself is just brilliant. Please give this one a listen. If you listen to any song I recommend, let it be this one. And Don't Fear the Reaper. We recommended that one in episode 1. Also listen to that one. Just listen to the songs. I'm trying to give you all good music. That is what I'm trying to do. Listen to the songs. All jokes aside, I really hope you guys do listen to them, and if you do, I really hope you do enjoy them. The song will be added to the playlist when this episode airs. So if you have found the playlist, or if you're going to look for the playlist and find it, the song will be there by the time you are hearing this. Next up, we have a segment called Paths of Doom. Paths of Doom is where I take a Would You Rather submitted by you, the audience, and I answer it with no tomfooleries, loopholes, or workarounds. Just a straight answer based off of the given context. This week's Paths of Doom was submitted by our good friend from Twitter, Brooks, and he asks, would you rather switch places with Leon S. Kennedy and have to survive the events of Raccoon City from Resident Evil 2, or switch place with Ethan Winters and have to survive the Baker household in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard? Ethan, tag me in, dude. We are switching places. I am not going through Raccoon City. Leon was a trained officer. Albeit a rookie, he still had to go through full combat training, weapons training, firearms training, aiming courses, all of that, to be a police officer. Yes, he was a rookie, but he still had to, graduate to become an officer. And he was still struggling through the people and creatures of Raccoon City. I'm not fucking dealing with Mr. X or Birkin. Fuck that. Can't forget none of those guys. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. It's not happening. Ethan was a systems manager. Not manager, engineer. He was a systems engineer. He was an engineer and he made it through the Baker house. He struggled, but he didn't get any form of combat training until the events between Biohazard and Village. I'm liking my chances of dealing with the Bakers a lot more than I am my odds of anything in Raccoon City. Technically Ethan does die. He does become, the mold thing, whatever the fuck it's called. I can't remember off the top of my head. But then again, technically that means I can just, come back. I don't actually, fully die. I mean, that's kind of how it works. So, I guess if I take Ethan's place and I swap out with him, I just, become a near unkillable, constantly healing, always losing my arm mold dude that really just loves his daughter. I'm okay with that. I would rather fight through the Baker's compound than have to do anything in Raccoon City. I think in general, I could handle the Baker's, household and residence a lot smoother than anything in Raccoon City. Not to mention, I don't trust that I could get out of Raccoon City before it gets fucking nuked. I don't trust I could survive anything in there, but I don't trust I could survive evacuation either. I would much rather switch places with Ethan. I'm sorry. Leon is cool as fuck. Resident Evil 2 is an incredible fucking game. I am not living through that. It's not happening. It's just not happening. Thank you for that submission, Brooks. I absolutely love that. That is fucking hilarious. Next up, we'll move to Question of the Day. Question of the Day is just a pretty straightforward standard segment. I ask a question, and you respond to me on Twitter at #SlashYourDreamsQOTD, or you can just tweet your answer and text me the answer to the question that I ask. Remember, no using Google. I want to test your horror knowledge. With that being said, Question of the Day for today, for episode 4, is James Gubb is the true name for what fictional serial killer, and from which movie does this serial killer come from? So we're looking for the killer alias of the character James Gubb, and we're looking for what movie he comes from. If you get that right, let me know. Let me know your answers. I already told you how to do it. You know the gist by this point. Let's see who gets this right. Alright, creatures. The night is nearly over for us, so it's time for our last segment. This is the Slasher Rewind, where we shine a light on a single slasher flick, highlighting my thoughts on the film, spoilers and all, before getting into the story, spoilers and all. Then we choose the kill that was deserving of the final cut, and the kill that was dead on arrival. And then at the end we rate the 5 key areas that make a slasher flick tick. Kills, score, protagonist, atmosphere, and of course, the slasher of the film themselves, before finally going to rate the film overall. This week, I decided to pick a fun movie that I really enjoy, The Slumber Party Massacre, 1982. This movie is absolutely incredible. It focuses on obviously a slumber party, but a slumber party that is tormented by an escaped serial killer named Russ Thorne, who uses a particularly odd weapon in a power drill to commit his murder spree. Now, as always, we will start with the final cut and the dead on arrival kill section, and then we'll move on to the kills and so on and so on. For this film, the final cut has to go to Neil. Neil's death in this film is genuinely the scariest death in the film because of how it's shot. Neil is working with his friend after the girls discover that they are being watched, whose name is Jeff. Him and Jeff decide they're both going to run in opposite directions looking for help. Jeff is going to try to, I think, get to the neighbors, if I remember correctly, and Neil is going to try and get to the other neighbor, Valerie, who is one of our 2 final girls. And technically the main character of the film, despite the fact she's not in it much. We'll get into that debate in a little bit. But Neil, safe to say, does not... Well, he does make it to Valerie, but he does not make it to Valerie. After a dispatching of another character, or alleged dispatching of another character, Russ Thorne chases down Neil, and we get this terrifying shot from a distance as Russ rushes towards the camera from a very narrow and dark, walking path. And it's an incredibly haunting shot as Neil is banging on the door to Valerie's house, begging her to help him, but she cannot hear him because the volume of the movie she is listening to is much too loud. Russ attacks Neil, and we get this horrifying shot of Neil on the ground being stabbed in sync with the character that is dying in the movie Valerie is watching. And we get this haunting look at Neil after the kill is over that shows his terrified face's expression. And it actually lingers on it for like a good 2-3 seconds in a way that's just genuinely terrifying. It is probably the scariest kill of the movie. It is the most effective kill. He's stabbed, I believe, 7 times with a kitchen knife. That just, it's haunting. The way that he's like convulsing after the first few stabs, and then the way he just goes still at the end. It's actually surprisingly well acted for, you know, for a movie that came out in 1982 that's mostly considered like a cheesy B-level slasher. It's a surprisingly good moment. It's a really like eerie kill that just it hits you right in the gut. It's just dead on. But yeah, I'm giving that the final cut. It is an absolutely incredible kill. However, the next kill was most definitely dead on arrival in more ways than one. Diane decides she's going to leave the party and goes out to the garage to reunite with her boyfriend, who had just told her to go inside and tell the girls that, you know, they were leaving for a little bit and she'd be back later. Diane goes out, she comes into the garage, and she finds her boyfriend is already decapitated. We don't get to see him die, the head falls off, the effect is decent. But the character that dies, John, who is the dead on arrival kill. I'm not saying Diane is. We'll get into Diane's kill later. John is the dead on arrival kill. He is such a nothing character. The few moments of screen time he has are just him obnoxiously trying to initiate sex or continuously pressure Diane into leaving her friends or demanding that her friends, you know, like accept him into like the sleepover, so that he can fuck around with Diane. He's an incredibly just weird and creepy character. He gives weird and creepy vibes. And when you have a character that's like that, I kind of want to see them die on screen. I don't want them to get an off-screen kill. They've been a creep. I want to see them die. You know, I want to see the slasher get them. I don't want to see a character that's been a creep the whole time get an off-screen death with absolutely zero impact, and then watch the person they've been a creep towards get an on-screen kill. It doesn't sit right with me. I don't like the scene. It's such a nothing character. What he does have in personality is a non-existent personality that's just replaced with sex drive. And I really would have rather actually seen him die after how much of a creep he is. But that's just me personally. But yeah, with that, we can get into the rest of the kills for the movie. In Slumber Party Massacre 1982, 12 people died during the events of the film, with 6 of the kills being done off-screen. Though most of the off-screen kills actually show the aftermath of the kill in one way or another. The first kill of the film is actually kind of a fucked up one. Fucking Jeff and Neil are, one of the two is hitting on a phone technician whose name is Mary. They're flirting with her. She's not really like paying attention to them. She's kind of giving like short answers. She watches them walk off because she thinks it's funny that 2 teenage boys just tried to flirt with her. And then, well, she's like opening her van and looking at them as they walk off, just bewildered at the audacity of both of them. She just gets dragged into the van, and as she bangs on the glass, screaming out to them, hoping that they can hear her, it turns out they can't hear her, and Russ ends up drilling her through the forehead. The kill is off screen. We see the blood splatter on the inside of the van, and then we see her body in a dumpster later as the teacher is exiting the school with the hole in her forehead. So we do know she's dead, obviously. We do know how she dies. We do see an aftermath of the kill, and it is shown with a rather brutal drill effect on the forehead. It's actually very well done. Next up is Linda. Linda's death is actually kind of sad. It's another unfortunate one. It begins with her turning back from the friend group after saying she doesn't know if she can go to the party because she wants to study. She's actually incredibly focused on, her academics. She wants to go to the slumber party, but she wants to prioritize her homework. She goes back because she forgot her textbook, and as she's entering the school, the coach of their basketball team is leaving the school, and she tells her, "Hey, whatever you're doing in here, hurry up because they're going to be locking up the building for the weekend soon." She's like, "Yeah, sure." She enters the school and basically, walks to the locker room. She opens it, grabs her textbook, goes to leave, and all of the exits are already locked. Now, I'm not sure if Russ had time to lock all of them, or if he just locked the one that he entered through and they had already locked the others. But the building is already locked down. And as she's going around trying to find doors, at least one door that will open, Russ attacks her and drills her into the arm. What ensues is actually a really tense chase where Russ loses her at one point and she locks herself in a cabinet, kind of like a closet area of the girls' shower room. And Russ almost... The part that makes it sad is Russ almost actually loses her. The only reason he finds her is because the cut on her arm has blood dripping from it, and it starts to pool under the door and out into the room Russ is in from where she is. Like, had she, put something on her arm sooner than she does, or tried to, move to the opposite direction of where she was hiding and not be, right next to the door, the blood wouldn't have pooled down there. She probably could have survived it, because Russ is about to leave before he looks down and sees the blood is pooling underneath the door and realizes she's in there. And when he realizes she's in there, he starts drilling through the door. He starts breaking it down. The camera cuts to the gymnasium. We hear a scream, and next thing we hear is the scream goes silent before Russ bursts from the hallway and back into the gym, breaking through the door that's locked and running to the van that he stole from the phone technician earlier. It's super sad because Linda totally could have gotten out of there. She totally could have survived that. It was so unfortunate that things just didn't go that way. And Russ does actually kill her. It's kind of sad. Next up is another character that gave me really big creep vibes. Mr. Contant. I believe that's how you say it. I'm not sure, because they say it two different ways throughout the course of the movie. The kill's fun because he is a kind of a creep. I mean, there's a scene where he gets really close to one of the girls and just sniffs, and I know he's sniffing the weed, but the way he gets so close to her hand and the way he looks when he does it is just so weird. It's nothing really special, but it's fun nonetheless because of the aftermath. He's basically out hunting snails with a meat cleaver, and he sneaks up on Diane and kills one next to her with no warning. He swings the knife down right next to her. Startles the fuck out of her, and he's like, "I got another snail." And she's like, "Okay, dude." And she fucks off back inside. And he sees another snail on the ground, and he's like, "Haha, another one." And then Russ just drills him through the back of the throat. We see Mr. Contant fall onto the screen with a broken drill bit still lodged in his throat. Not sure how the drill bit broke, or how Russ, has another one. Maybe he keeps it in all of the denim that he's fucking wearing at any point in time. But yeah, it's a cool effect, I won't lie, and the drill bit does look cool lodged in there. But it's another creepy-ass nothing character. It's mostly done off-screen with the aftermath of it shown on-screen, and it's just... It's an alright kill. I think it's okay. We already talked about John, who's next, so he was our dead on arrival kill, so we'll move to Diane. Diane is the character in this movie that is considered, the rude one. She's unnecessarily mean to Valerie. Not particularly likable in how she interacts, but she's still around enough and has a large enough personality that when it is finally time for her death, I still feel really bad for her. In the scene where she discovers John, her boyfriend, who's a creep, where she discovers his body... she screams as the head slumps off and alerts Russ that she's there. And Russ kind of storms right towards her and corners her. And there is this really haunting visual where she, like, slides down and is looking up at him, and we get this shot of the drill bit between his legs and, like, a really eerily symbolic shot. It makes you feel, like, skeeved out. It's gross, and we do see that she, too, gets drilled through the forehead, much like the phone technician was. She's then put into the trunk of her boyfriend's car, where a lot of the other bodies are revealed to be, as Russ is cleaning up after himself and hiding the bodies to not kind of tip people off that he's there just yet. Which is funny because the next person he kills, like, 5 minutes later, pretty much tips them off regardless. Speaking of which, a quick kill that... A quick kill that doesn't have much to it, but a really cool visual effect. At some point during the slumber party, after the girls have realized that, Jeff and Neil are messing with them and that they're there, they order pizza. And the pizza guy shows up, and he's outside the door, and they're like, how much do we owe you? He tells them the total, and they're all trying to put together the change and the money to pay the pizza guy. You don't hear any sounds from the other side. You don't hear anything. Absolutely fucking nothing. But apparently, Russ had time to drill 2 holes through the back of the head into the eye sockets of this guy, because when they open the door, he's standing there with both of his eyes gouged out through the back of his skull. And what's even funnier is that he is standing. Like, they open the door, he's standing there with 2 wide-ass holes in his face. And he just falls over the moment they open the door. It's so goofy and unrealistically stupid. Like, I'm okay with subverting, getting rid of, my what is it called? Suspense of reality or suspense of disbelief or whatever. But, like, this one's just so stupid. He has two massive holes in his fucking skull. And he's still standing just for a cheap jump scare when they open the door. It's so stupid. It's so goofy. And I think the best part of it is it leads to a joke later in the film where the girls are huddled in, like, the middle of the living room while they wait for Jeff and Neil to come back. And Jackie, one of the characters in the movie, is like, man, I sure am hungry. And Trish and Kimberly are like, what the hell? And they go to feel the pizza guy's, like, body, and Kimberly's like, he's cold. And Jackie's just like, is the pizza? Oh my god, it makes me laugh every fucking time. And then she grabs it, she's like, what? When I'm stressed, I eat and it makes me feel better. She takes a bite and she's like, see? I feel better already. Oh, it makes me laugh every fucking time. It is so stupid. I can't. It's too good. It's too good. It is the dumbest fucking thing. But it's too funny. It is too fucking funny. oh, Jesus. Okay. After the pizza guy is Neil. We already went over him in the final cut. Then it goes to Jeff. Jeff's death is a rough one. He's a part of the surely one of us will make it if the other doesn't pact, which both of them fail. Russ attacks him before going after Neil, but he didn't finish off the kill. He thought he did, but when he goes to check the trunk when he's going to hide Neil's body, he realizes that the body count is a little off and one of the bodies is missing. Turns out Jeff crawled all the way to the back door of Trish's house and is begging the girls at the slumber party to let him back in. They're too scared to let him in, and sadly Russ hears him and finds him and just drills him off screen with blood pooling underneath the door. It's kind of sad because the girls are mortified and you can tell they feel really bad about having not let him in. Which I think is part of the reason why the next death happens the way it does. Jackie's death is incredibly quick, like lightning fast. After the pizza guy dies and they see his body, the girls scream, and Kimberly and Jackie at the time were on the phone with the coach, their basketball coach, who I talked about earlier in Linda's death. And all the girls scream, and the coach gets worried, so she calls Valerie, our final girl, and the neighbor of Trish to go over and check on the girls at the slumber party. Trish does so during this scene, and Kimberly and Jackie hear her, and Jackie feeling... I believe she feels bad that they didn't let Jeff in, so I feel that's why she actually goes to try and let Valerie in. And when she lets Valerie in, Valerie has already gone to the back of the house to see if there's anybody back there. And as she opens the door, instead of finding Valerie, she finds Russ. Russ drives his drill across her throat for a very quick and almost instantaneous throat slash. It's quick, it's violent, it's sad because she really didn't deserve it. She was sweet. She gave us the funniest joke of the movie. She was just a really fun character, and I feel so bad every time I see her die on a rewatch. It makes me feel bad. After this happens, Trish, who seemingly had, like... I know that it's not ever explicitly said, but it genuinely feels like Trish has a romantic interest in Valerie. I mean, during certain scenes, both of them look at each other in this almost longing way. But Trish, who seemingly has feelings for Valerie, at least on some level, all of a sudden starts acting really suspicious of Valerie. She's like, why was she outside? Maybe they're working together. And she starts, like, planting seeds in Kimberly's head after Kimberly is like, we have to go out and help Valerie. She's like, what if she's with him? And it's like, it's this weird out-of-character moment, because the next time we see the girls, Trish is now all of a sudden, like, second-guessing that. She's like, I don't know what to believe. But while they're having this conversation about Valerie being out there, and... you know, everything going on and Trish's suspicion, Russ Thorne is sneaking in through the window to the bedroom they've barricaded themselves in, unbeknownst to either of them. It's not until they hear a creak on the floorboards that they realize he's in there. They fight him off for a few seconds. I believe Kimberly manages to hit him over the head with a baseball bat, and it knocks him out for like 0.2 seconds because the motherfucker's eyes open like super wide, and he makes like this Frankenstein groan noise as he instantly gets back up. Trish is moving the barricade aside, and Russ approaches and just stabs Kimberly right in the stomach. It's like right above her stomach, almost underneath the chest. And that's literally her death. It is a quick, just one stab death. Kind of boring, but at least it was on screen, and at least it was a character that I actually got, connected to. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's simple, but it's unfortunate. And Trish does manage to move the dresser and get out of the room. She goes and she hides in a different room as Valerie and her little sister Courtney come into the house. Courtney and Valerie end up discovering a body. I believe it is Kimberly's. That Russ kind of shoves in the fridge. They scream. Valerie runs downstairs, and Courtney runs off and hides underneath a couch in the living room. And we get the next death of the film in Coach Rachel. Coach Rachel is an absolute fucking badass. After hearing the girls scream earlier on the phone and going over to check on the girls themselves after Valerie didn't get back to her, she comes over to check on the girls. She finds the house mostly empty, but does discover Russ himself sleeping in the living room. Though he's not actually sleeping, when she pulls the blankets off, his eyes are once again wide as fuck, and he's just staring at her. They end up getting into a tussle, and Coach is actually a badass. Like, she beats his ass with a fire poker after Courtney aids her with, like, a trip. She trips Russ, and she just starts beating the shit out of Russ with a fire poker. However, when Trish finally decides she wants to actually help, she runs in with a knife and stabs Russ, but is, like, instantly traumatized by the fact she just stabbed somebody. And not wanting Trish to be in any danger, Coach Rachel kind of rushes over and tries to get Trish away from Russ and check on her. And when she turns back around to face Russ, he drills over her stomach and her guts pour out. It's incredibly sad because the teacher is just an absolute badass, and that whole fight she has with Russ is so cool. It's just such a shame she goes out like that. But afterwards, Valerie comes up with a machete she found in the basement and chases Russ outside. The next kill we have is the final kill of the movie, which is Russ Thorne himself. He has pretty much the most drawn-out death of the movie. Save for maybe Neil's, but this is definitely, like, a longer death, but it's because it's a longer segment of, like, 2 mini-fights that kind of get separated. Neil's is a more drawn-out and painful thing, in my opinion, but I guess you could say Russ is probably more painful. I think it's just... I don't view him... I view him as a slasher, and to me, slashers don't typically feel pain, you know? Although to Russ definitely does, but I view him as a slasher, and I kind of view how a slasher dies versus how a survivor dies differently. But after being chased outside, Russ has his drill, Valerie has a machete. Valerie ends up chopping off the drill bit in like a really symbolic scene, and Russ just looks at it confused before Valerie starts hacking at one of his arms, eventually taking it off. Russ goes to attack her, and she slides her blade across his stomach, and his guts kind of pour out a little bit, and he falls into the pool, seemingly dead. Courtney comes out to hug her sister, and they're both crying. And then all of a sudden, Russ climbs out of the pool and attacks both of them again. Trish comes out to help. Courtney comes over to help. They both get, like, slapped and pushed away. Russ charges at Valerie headfirst, and Valerie, holding the machete up, kind of looks away. Russ jumps on her and lands stomach first on the machete, finally actually being put down after impaling himself. It's an alright kill. After everything he did in the movie, it's fitting that his drill gets, you know, symbolically cut off. He loses a hand, he gets gutted, and then eventually impaled. It's pretty decent. I like it. I think it's a decent kill, especially for a slasher of the film. I do think the performance of the actor is kind of creepy. Like, he's basically speaking in nonsense gibberish towards, like, the end. Like, he is just screaming incoherently. It is almost terrifying. But yeah. Overall, I'd say the kills are a solid 3 or 4. The off-screen kills do have some cool reveals some of the time. But there's a lot of nothing characters in the movie that don't really add anything. There's some sad kills. There's some kills that are incredibly underwhelming. Like Kimberly's is just a single stab. John dies off screen. Contant doesn't really, he's a nothing character, and he gets like that drill bit to the throat thing, and the effect is cool. It's just not really that impressive. There are some really good kills. The pizza guy kill, while it leads to the best joke, is still really goofy to me, and I'm not a big fan of it. Yeah, I'd say a solid 3 or 4. I'd be generous and give it a 4 because the good kills in this movie are super good. The score is amazing. It's it's an 80s synth slasher, and it's an 80s synthwave slasher flick score. You know it's gonna be good. However, it's kind of repetitive at times, as instead of like making different songs for different scenes, they do like to reuse the same song multiple times as much as they fucking can. And while it's a good song, it does get really repetitive after a while, and I think the lack of diversity in the music in the movie does kind of hurt it, because the first time you watch it, you're like, okay, wow, this theme for Russ every time he's on screen is really creepy, it's really ominous, it's really, like, terrifying. But then you've watched it for, like, the 14th time, and it's like, okay, if I hear this song again, I might lose it. Because it's good, but, like, after you hear the same, like, 5 notes repeated over and over again for the 40th time in the movie, you're like, okay, that's enough. Let's mute for a bit. Not that you can actually mute, you're watching a movie, but it is a little repetitive at times, and if you're not in the mood to hear it, it can be kind of rough. So I'd say the score, while good, is also a 4 out of 5. I think I said 4 out of 10 for the kills. It's 4 out of 5. Atmosphere. The atmosphere is pretty well established. We get a familiarity to our core settings in Trish's house, the backyard of Trish's house, the backyard of Valerie's house. And the scenes are pretty well paced. You never know where Russ is until it's too late, which I really like. And when he's not on screen, his presence still kind of lingers. The lighting is really good, and the way they filmed a lot of the scenes, the cinematography is really good. Especially the scene where Russ is running towards the camera, towards Neil outside of Valerie's house. That scene it stuck with me. It makes my blood run cold every time I see it. I'd give the atmosphere of this film a 5 out of 5. I think it's incredibly well built. The music every once in a while can take you out of it if it's, as I said, if you're having one of those days where it's like, okay, this song's played the same 5 chords like 50 fucking times now, we need to stop. But overall, it's still an incredibly atmospheric film. So yeah, I'd say atmosphere is a 5 out of 5. The protagonist. Now, we start the film with Trish, and we spend the vast majority of the film with Trish. However, the way the film itself frames the overall conflict of the movie, it frames it as though Valerie is our protagonist and final girl. The presence of her character is crucial to, the final confrontation. She basically is the final confrontation. Nothing really happens in terms of fighting back until Valerie is present. Past, the coach fighting back, but, Valerie is already in the house at that point and already is finally aware of what's going on. But Valerie really isn't aware of what's going on until the last, 15, 20 minutes of the film. If Trish is the main character, I'd say she's probably a 3 out of 5 protagonist. She's not really... She doesn't really have much going on for her as a character past, what's happening in the slumber party, wanting to be with her friends, and being scared of what's going on. Valerie has a little bit more going on in terms of what she wants and what's going on in her life, but she's also not present nor on screen enough for me to really care. I'd say Valerie, if she's the protagonist, is probably a 2 out of 5. Her final fight with Russ is awesome, don't get me wrong, but she's not even aware of him until the last 15, 20 minutes of the film. A good 5-10 of those minutes are spent with her in the basement looking for a weapon to fight him with, and then it's like a 3-4 minute fight and it's over. Her night is done. She doesn't go through nearly as much of the terror that the rest of the girls had to go through over the later half of the film after Russ reveals that he's killing people around the area with the pizza guy kill. It's just it's not a very good protagonist setup regardless of which character you are looking at as the main character. That's just from my personal standpoint. I think it's a really weak protagonist, so I'd say overall, we're probably going to give it a 2 or a 3. I'm thinking we're going to go with a 2 out of 5 for protagonist. Russ Thorne will rate the slasher next. Russ is weird as fuck. He's creepy as fuck. He's an unsettling motherfucker. And he's played so well that it comes off as a genuinely natural discomfort. The character's silence and wide eyes are just fucking haunting. And it's even worse when he does finally start talking. Somehow, it's worse. I didn't think it could get worse. And when he's screaming and it's almost impossible to understand him, it, again, somehow becomes even more horrifying. His weapon of choice is weird as fuck with the power drill, but he's incredibly effective with it, so, hey man, whatever works for you. His look is also so casual and feels so off for a slasher. He's just rocking almost full denim. He's wearing blue jeans with a red t-shirt and a blue denim jacket over it. It's like, you sure picked serial killering attire there, my good dude. You are certainly a fashion icon. He's one of the slashers in horror that you really just wouldn't want to be around. He's just creepy as fuck. You don't want to be around him. I'd say overall, with how well he's acted, how creepy he is, how much of a presence he has even when not on screen, he's a 4 out of 5. And with that, I'd say the overall film for Slumber Party Massacre is a solid 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 knives on the slasher scale sounds more than fair for this movie. There are some shortcomings to it, but it's still at the end of the day a really good movie. I think more people should watch it. I think it's incredibly underrated. The Slumber Party Massacre is a really good movie. The sequel is a different story. We can get into that at a later date. The remake is also pretty good. We'll get into that at a later date. But yeah, The Slumber Party Massacre 1982 is a relatively good movie. It's got a lot of comfort there for me because of how humorous it is. When I want someone to just mindlessly turn on, it is one of my go-to movies because of how fun it is. But yeah, that about does it. Yeah, I think The Slumber Party Massacre is a solid 7 out of 10 on the slasher scale. But, creatures, it looks like our night has come to an end. This is your host, Ashley, reminding you to be kind, rewind, and keep an ear out for all things that go bump in the night. Until next time.